Hi, I'm John Diarman with the Coquille Ice Sword Group, and today we're talking about Article 8, the spiritual bearing. So, let's go ahead and jump in. Article 8, the spiritual bearing. The spiritual bearing during combat should not be disheartened, not hasty, not artful, not fearful, but always straight and large. Thereby, the outer spirit, I-no-kokoro, should be held light, and the inner spirit, Shin-no-kokoro, heavy. And you should adapt flexibly to each situation with a spirit like water. Water has various colors. It can be a drop in one moment and a blue sea in another. This should be carefully observed. So, let's start at the beginning, work through it, and kind of poke at this thing from a couple different angles and see if we can get a little understanding, right? So, what's nice is that he lays out right away what you don't want, right? You don't want to be disheartened, hasty, artful, or fearful, right? And from this we can sort of extrapolate the general characteristics that he sees as a negative to a person's success in martial combat, right? So, disheartened, what does that mean, right? It means that feeling when you feel sorry for yourself, right? You know, you're doing a set of push-ups or whatever exercise you do, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do 30, right? I'm pumping them out, and right around 20, I start to go, yeah, well, 20's a pretty big number, hypothetically, or whatever your skill level is, right? And I think I've done pretty good. I could probably just call it there, that sort of, you've lost your heart, right? You're feeling sorry for yourself, and you're no longer trying to drive to complete your task. You're just trying to get the task to be over, right? And unfortunately, in combat, or maybe fortunately, it sort of depends on how you think about these things, you don't get to decide when the fight's over, right? Other dude does. Sort of a cooperative, right, sort of thing. And unless you're the one instigating violence, it's the other dude, right? He says, I decide that we're going to have this fight, and I decide how long it keeps going until you convince me otherwise, right? So, it says, don't feel sorry for yourself. When it's time to do the work, just get it done, right? No muss, no fuss, right? Next one, hasty, right? Again, this is kind of the other side of disheartened, where you feel sorry for yourself, and rather than just going, I could have a cheat day. I could just have that Twinkie or that cupcake or whatever. Just go with it, right? Hasty says, nah, we're gonna finish this as quickly as possible. I'm gonna belt out those last push-ups to get to the end. But maybe I'm not gonna pay attention to my form, right? Maybe I'm not gonna go all the way down, all the way up. Maybe I'm not gonna do my breathing like I'm supposed to, right? It's that rushing, right? Trying to just run to the end, like people in a haunted house, right? They close their eyes and just start running, right? It's bad plan. It's a bad plan. So don't want to do that, right? Artful, right? And this is an interesting one, right? And it's not the first time that or rather, it's not the only time that he criticizes fencers and martial artists that strive to be artful. And coming from somebody who is pretty highly regarded as an artist in his own right, his works in calligraphy and metalwork, in addition to his swordcraft, it's kind of an odd thing to hear, right? What is he driving at this? It's like, oh, being artful is bad, but I'm going to go do that in everything I do, right? What he's saying here is artfulness, right? An aesthetic that others can appreciate should not be your goal, right? In other words, when I'm studying how to draw or how to make my cut, I am not trying to make a cut that looks good, right? I'm trying to make a cut that functions well. I'm trying to make a draw that functions well, and okay, that functions well, right? Now, the interesting thing about this is, and this is not limited to sword work, it's one of these sort of universal principles. The more proficient and efficient a piece of work is, the more aesthetically beautiful it will appear, right? And it's kind of a hard thing to talk about, because it's one of those things you just kind of have to experience, like the other guy getting his hands on you, right, and just rocking you. Anyway, the point. Don't try and make your work look pretty, because whether your work looks good or looks like some goofy frickin' monkey dance is of no consequence. What matters is efficacy. Does your work get the job done, right? And if it's really good at getting the job done, it'll look good, right? So don't worry about it, right? Okay, and the last one, fearful, right? Now, there is an idea that the samurai were like, I don't know, like stone cold, right? That they felt no fear. And this is, of course, it's idiotic. That's not true. It's not what people are like. And culture doesn't really have anything to do with that. What culture affects is the qualities that we let influence our actions. In other words, Musashi's not saying don't be afraid, because that's impossible. He's saying don't be fearful. Don't be full of fear. Don't let your fear be what takes the wheel, what drives the car, so to speak. And there's another sort of hidden side to all of these, in that being disheartened or hasty or fearful or artful, all of them are subjectively focused. In other words, I'm going to fight with a dude, right? What should I be paying attention to? Where should my focus be? Should it be on myself, on my mind, going, oh, wow, I don't feel good, or oh, wow, I want to hurry up and get this done, or oh, wow, I want to look really freaking cool, Ninja Man 5000 when I do this, right? Or should it be on the dude that's trying to murder you? It's pretty simple, but a lot of people get caught in it, and this is sort of like the training wheels baby step version of Mushin, right? Get out of your subjective kind of mental, where I'm at in my body, in my head, thinking about this, worrying about this, and instead look at reality. Just observe reality. Let your subconscious handle all your body, right? That's why you train, right? You don't train to learn a technique, because you can learn a technique, like you can learn how to cut in 10 minutes, right? So why do we throw thousands and thousands and thousands of cuts same cut over and over and over and over and over again? Because we're refining it. We're getting it to where our subconscious can take the wheel, can take over, so that we don't have to handle it, so that our conscious mind can spend more time doing the things that it's better at, right? Which in fighting is not a whole lot, right? The more you can kind of relegate to your subconscious and just sort of casually observe, like you're watching a movie of yourself and Teki, of the opponent. And you get into that flow state, right? The better you're going to be, the higher in your sort of range of skill you'll fight in, right? So he says, hey, these are things that should be avoided. What you should be is straight and large. Kind of straight and large is an odd thing to say about something, especially in comparison to being disheartened or hasty, things that have an emotional kind of quality to them. He is not talking just about your physical self here. He's not speaking like, oh, you should be straight and large. Walk straight, spread your shoulders, be straight and large. It's an entirely different thing. Now, often your body will mimic your internal state, and so consequently, your work can appear very straight and very large, right? But what he's getting at is directness, right? In other words, if I look at the dude's drawn down on me, he's whatever, I am looking for that straight line that connects my mind and my current position to victory. And I mean position in like complete relation, like where this guy is, physically, mentally, in terms of distance, in terms of relation, in terms of timing to me, right? It's all of my eye all at once. And I'm looking for that single straight thread that brings me to the most direct conclusion of the encounter. All right, how large? This idea of largeness or fullness or deepness is again one of those things that is hard to talk directly at, but that you can kind of talk around for a while. So I'm going to try and do that because I think it'll sort of elucidate it a bit. The easiest way to know a thing is to know its opposite, right? To get that contrast. So think about people you've seen in your life that, regardless of their physical stature, right, appeared small to you, right? Small people, bent-in people, even if they stand straight, they kind of don't in their heart. If you're attentive to human beings around you in your environment at all, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? That inward turn, right? That pulled in, right? And of course you could see it exaggerated in postures, right? That people who walk shoulders hunched, head down, become older and older people that do the same thing, right? This is what we're trying to avoid. This drive to the internal, right? Now, if we were doing perhaps, I was going to say some sort of internal religious or spiritual exercises, that might be appropriate. But even in those cases, I don't think that it is. But that's sort of a philosophical tangent anyway. What we want is to be large, to be expansive, to fill up everything we can interact with our consciousness, to bring our mind out and large and full into our environment. And it goes both ways. In other words, the more you expand your largeness outside of you, the more there's sort of a expanded outside, there's an equal depth that tends to be gained, to be balanced. Otherwise, you just end up in that sort of this hasty, right? Where you're just like, okay, go, right? And that's not what this is, right? That's not what this is at all. Anyway, so hopefully that helps a little bit. Watch people, right? Go to a place where people are busy trying to do things. Places like train stations and airports and fast food restaurants, the insides of malls, right? Any place where people have a task that they're trying to accomplish. You can watch them. Watch their body. Watch their composure. Watch their behavior, right? See how they interact with other people, right? How do they move? And you'll get a much better sense for these qualities that we're trying to both avoid and to foster, right? So, it says, hey, your spiritual bearing should be large and straight. We covered that. Now, he goes and he delineates your spiritual bearing in terms of your outer spiritual bearing, the facade that people can see, the outside of your house, your I-no-kokoro, with what is going on the inside. What's inside the house? How is it decorated? What's working on the inside, right? And this is your Shin-no-kokoro, right? Your true heart. Again, this is not nearly as complicated as it may at first seem. It's in fact quite simple. And this kind of facade is something that everybody does without exception. What Musashi is suggesting is a specific way to modulate your exterior and your interior, your omote and your ura, right? To be more effective in combat. Right? He says, hey, when people look at you, when they see the outside of you, they should see something that's light, right? Something that's easy, something that can be moved around, something that seems effortless, right? But that's just this veneer, right? What's going on inside is this deep, heavy thing, right? This solidity, this immutable body of the rock, right? Wherein you are committed, right? You're not going to get disheartened. You're not going to get hasty. You are going to move like an inevitable force of nature to the end that you've decided, right? And that's what he suggests your Shin-no-kokoro be, right? So, why? I mean, that's like the $10 million question, right? Why do you want to, I mean, isn't it a lot of work to put up a face and have an interior? No, not really. Not really at all. I don't, my experience is that it takes no special training at all. Again, it's something that everybody does. We're doing it all the time. This is just a refinement to that. So if it's not hard, it says, okay, well, that's not a detriment. What's the benefit? What's the benefit of this? And that is for sure, part of it is deception, right? It is this idea that you are going to present information to an opponent to provoke a specific type of reaction, only for him to find out that the information that he acted on was a ruse, and that the truth is actually the best thing to sort of compensate against the action that you led them to take in the first place. Of course, there is an element to that. But really, it's just a little superficial, just a little, right? I mean, it is definitely a strategy that we employ, but the deeper benefit of this is surprisingly personal, right? For a topic that is all about, get out of your inside space and get into the exterior world and interact with it, the benefit is internal, which is, like I said, sort of paradoxical. Basically, by balancing yourself in this way, right? You're evening out kind of your modality to where you're not all one thing, all one other. You're achieving that pseudo balance, and I say pseudo, right? Because your I-no-kokoro is not. It's not that it's a lie, right? So, though we are using it to deceive the opponent, it's more like a half-truth, right? There's another philosophical argument, in that it's true what we're projecting on the outside. Our body really does have a lightness, an ease to it, a suppleness, a relaxation. We know that the opponent is going to interpret that a specific way. So we're deceiving them with the truth, right? Which is insidious, right? It's the worst kind of lie. But it helps internally keep us in check. Because when you start really getting into this body of the rock, because it is this sort of dense, solid thing inside your heart, you can end up losing sort of harmony with your emotions in the outside world. And the suppleness that this sort of light, I-no-kokoro, gives you makes it more usable. It makes it more usable in real life against real people, as opposed to just a personal meditative tool or something of that nature, right? So hopefully that makes it more clear and less obscured and not just sort of confusing as all heck. So we come to this last part, and often quoted by martial artists, though rarely do they know the sort of attribution to this, be like water, right? Famously, Bruce Lee used it. It's pretty simple, right? In the same way that we watch other people to observe their fundamental natures, both on a large scale and kind of a macro scale, right? Like, what is this individual? What is their nature? As compared to the general nature of the group, as compared to the general nature of the community, to the whole, sort of on and on and on. You do the same thing with, hopefully, your environment, right? What is the nature of the rock, right? What is the nature of water? It's the same kind of thing. So obviously, we can intellectually understand that water doesn't have a set definitive shape in sort of in its liquid state, of course, which is what he's talking about. It doesn't have a place where it just goes, I'm content. This is the shape that I'm going to be in, right? Instead, it responds to everything in its in its environment, from the container to any time it's interacted with, right? And that is a trait that Musashi suggests is very valuable, right? If we are sort of hidebound to our work, right? We're dogmatic about it. We go, oh, well, he's attacking, Kiryotoshi. I'm going to Sasen because that's what I do. That's my jam. That's my thing, right? You may be effective in the encounter, but it's easy to confuse brief efficacy with long-term benefit, right? Because it's easy, right? Oh, I did this thing and it was easy. Yeah, I didn't do it the whole right way, but that takes work, takes effort, takes time, right? I can get away with just this. And better than that, I can convince myself and other people that, oh, well, this is not only good because it worked these couple of times, it's better because you don't have to do as much work, right? Now that being said, the opposite can also happen, where a person comes out and they do this huge, large, elaborate whatever, and you go, that's awesome, I can accomplish the same thing with less work. And these look very similar, but they're just on opposite sides of the sort of spectrum. So if we're like in a bell curve, or we're just this simple straight line graph, on one end you have doing too much, and on one hand you have doing too little, right? And somewhere in the middle you have the just right, where you get all the benefit, but you're not losing efficiency, right? If you think about it in this kind of way, finding the sort of balance in your work to where you do enough that you accomplish not only the short-term goals in that instant, but the long-term goals as well, without having sort of these diminishing returns to where you just don't really gain anything from it after that, meaningful for the time you put into it. That's your sweet spot, right? Anyway, so to review, right? Spiritual bearing in combat should not be internal, right? Your focus should not be inside. It should be full, right? You're trying to be straight and large, steadfast and steady, right? What people see on the outside should be light and adaptable. When people see you fence, your fencing should look easy. It should look like nothing special at all. If you do something and somebody goes, oh my gosh, that was so special and cool, you probably have a ways to go in your work, right? Again, it's not to say that it didn't work, right? And it's not to say that there is no value in just doing the bare minimum to get the job done. I mean, there are times when that's the best you can do, right? But in training, that is not always the case. That's not even often the case. Usually, you can go much further because you're in a safe environment. You're not under constraints, So, push yourself. Do a little hard, right? So, wow, your exterior looks like everything is just the easiest, nothing special in the world. Interior-wise, you are immovable, right? You're solid. You're inescapable. You're definite, right? And you should be like water, right? In terms of your adaptability, not in terms of your emotional state, right? Some people will read this, be like water, especially how it's presented in the Gorin no Sho. I think it's presented much better here. You get this sense like, oh, I should try and adopt all of the qualities of water. It's like, well, some of them are good for sure, right? But if your emotions are swayed as easily as water changes its shape, you're going to have a rough life, right? You're going to have a rough time. If every time someone tries to do work on you, you just collapse around them, right? You go into grapple and they resist, and your work just blaws into nothing, right? That's not desirable, right? So, this is not just, we are the water school. That's not what this is, right? It's just, hey, here are these traits. Here's something that everybody's familiar with that you can observe them in. Take those that are good and add to your work, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully, right? So, that's it for Article 8, Spiritual Bearing. As always, if you want to understand this better, you have to pick up a sword and go train.